So there's a lot of misconceptions around having a buyer's representative when purchasing a property. I hear a lot of the times, why do I need a buyer's agent? It's just going to cost me more money. It's an added cost that I don't need. So I'd like to go through a couple of those misconceptions. Number one, you don't pay a buyer's representative when you're purchasing a home. A seller pays the entire compensation for the transaction. So if you think that it's going to cost you more money to be represented, you're entirely wrong. It's not going to cost you anything. Another thing I hear is that, I don't need a representative and I can do this on my own. I've bought and sold a home before. I guess it's pretty simple to say, would you perform a surgery on yourself? Or would you represent yourself in a lawsuit if it came to that? You wouldn't. You would hire a professional to do so. This is a very, very valuable, expensive asset. Work with a real estate professional. Work with someone who does this on a regular basis. And just because you've done it once doesn't mean that you're an expert. I have access to the same information that real estate agents do. Hear this all the time. Not the case. We have access and relationships with a lot of other people outside of these large websites and consumer sites that we've talked about. We have properties that we know are upcoming, that are about to hit the market in a month or 2 or 3 months. We have properties that we know of that are coming on the market from other outside agents and brokerages. Relationships have tremendous value, and our relationships go a lot further than the things that you see online. So when it comes to buying a property, please don't be foolish. Hire a professional, use a real estate agent. It costs you nothing, and you'll gain everything by doing so. So when you're a buyer in the market and you're trying to acquire a property, the most important thing is winning and getting your offer accepted. This goes back to when we talked about working with a competitor. It's very important that you work with a representative because true professionals and true real estate professionals know how to leverage the contracts, leverage the terms, and how to negotiate on your behalf to make sure that you win. And again, winning is the most important thing when it comes to buying a property. A couple of situations I've had before in the past where people have sort of messed around, if you will, and said, it's coming at this price, or gone against my advice of how to get the property under contract. Someone else bought it, someone else got it under contract, and they said, well, now I'll pay more, or let's do this, or we can come back, we'll pay more than they're in contract for. Once it's signed on the dotted line, there's nothing you can do. So again, getting your offer accepted and controlling the deal is everything. It's absolutely imperative that you do that. So again, when working with a real estate professional, we know the contract inside and out. We know how to leverage the terms inside of the contract to help actually save you on price. So we can present value to a seller without actually monetarily doing that. We can do it through the terms. Making sure you're prepared to submit an offer is just as important as submitting the offer and as the terms. And what I mean by that is having your verification funds ready to go, having your pre-qual letter and going through the lending process of getting pre-qualified so that we can show that seller that you have the ability to purchase this property and that you're going to close. That's absolutely imperative. I can't tell you how many times people just write offers without being able to show the seller that they can close. So it's this entire package that we have to present. You got to be able to write the contract the right way. You got to be able to leverage the terms. You got to make sure that you're prepared to submit an offer and show the proper documentation that you can close. And then again, control the deal. Get it under contract, control it, and then you can maneuver later from there if you have to. I thought one of the best examples I could share with you was my own personal home buying process. Represented myself. I'd been in the business for a couple of years, had grown my company and my team, done a lot of transactions, and was pretty versed in the business at that time. So my wife and I found a house that we really liked, that we wanted to buy. Their process starts even sooner than when we came in the picture. They listed the home with a family friend to try to save money. The agent told us that. Said, I'm the cousin, I'm from out of the area, not even a local agent. And they listed the property for way too much money to start. They had 2 price reductions or 3 price reductions, and eventually they accepted an offer. And the offer that they accepted was a contingent offer, meaning that the buyer had to sell their home first to buy that property. And they should have never accepted that offer in the first place because the home that the buyer needed to sell wasn't even on the market. So they started at $1.3 million. They reduced down to like $1.1 million. They accepted an offer that they should have never accepted. And 60 days later, the buyer was not able to sell their home and the transaction canceled. The seller was in a hurry at this time. They had burned 4 or 5 months and they came back on the market at $999. So they had reduced by $300,000 at this point. I saw the property and offered $900,000 and they rejected it. They said, no way, not happening. And a week later, they called back and said, you know what, if you could do $950, we'll do the deal. And so I split the difference with them. I said, I'll do $925. They agreed. So we got the property in contract at $925, which was well below market value. But again, at that point, they had burned 4 to 5 months and the seller had to sell and they really didn't have a choice. My wife and I, we needed to complete our tax returns prior to being able to qualify for the loan. We were trying to purchase a home in November and we weren't going to be able to file our taxes until March, basically. So I asked the agent, I said, how about if I release $4,500 a month at the beginning of every month from our deposit, our good faith deposit, that's in escrow, to cover the cost for the seller, and we'll occupy the property. And we'll live in it until March for 5 months, and come March 1st, we'll close escrow. And she said, okay, this is great. So we agree to the deal, we signed the contract, everything's good, we go through the process, and about 3 weeks in, she sends me an address. She said, this is the address you need to mail the check to. And I said, no, we're just going to release it out of the deposit like it says in the contract. And a couple hours later, she called me frustrated and upset and said, well, that means that you're paying us with money that's already going towards the purchase. And I said, yeah, you're right. That's exactly what I'm doing. It was a negotiation tool, is leveraging the contract in a way that I knew would benefit us. She was inexperienced and she admitted it. She said, I didn't catch that. I didn't realize that. I've only done a couple transactions. So the moral of the story is we lived in the property for 5 months with using money that was already going towards the purchase. So we lived there for free, essentially. That ended up costing the sellers over $20,000. And I think the house was worth about $1.2 million when we bought it. We refinanced it 6 months later, and the appraisal came back at $1.15 million. So somewhere in that ballpark, $1.15 million, $1.2 million. So they lost about $300,000 in equity when they sold the property. They lost another $25,000 just in poor negotiation, all trying to save 2.5%, which was about $20,000 by hiring their family friend to do them a favor. So the moral of the story is, no matter whether you're selling or you're buying, it's critical that you work with a real estate professional who understands the process and the contracts and is a full-time agent. We're talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars that are at stake. It's absolutely important that you work with someone who knows what they're doing. So don't make the mistake that the person who sold their house to us did and hire a friend to try to save $20,000 because it ended up costing them $350,000.